Hi everybody, welcome to In the Mix, where there's talk, music, entertainment, and today it's all about fashion. I'm Donna Sam and welcome to the show. I feel like I just won the golden ticket in a big candy store, but instead it's a fashion house, and I am here with celebrity fashion designer and founder of Single, Miss Galina Sobolev. Welcome, and thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, and it's my pleasure.
And we are here at Single, and I tell you, I'm going to try to not salivate because there are so many wonderful things here. And you are such a creative force.
Thank you so
And I'm
much.
walking through here and I'm looking at all the lovely prints.
And you're wearing a beautiful, colorful one of my personal favorites.
I've gotten
actually.
so many compliments on this. And we'll talk about, where the inspiration and everything comes from as we get into the interview. But I wanted to kind of start at the beginning. So I know you're born and raised in Russia.
That's correct.
And you learned to sew and crochet from your grandmother. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, I must have been born with the passion for fashion, and my grandmother instilled it in me at a very early age. And as a child, I remember helping turn her little Singer sewing machine, sitting on top of her sewing desk. And back in the days, she didn't even have the one with the pedals. She had like a regular hand sewing machine. And she really taught me how to hand sew, how to crochet, and instilled creative passion in me for patching and creating something out of literally nothing, because back in those times in Russia, it was still a Soviet Union. There was a very limited amount of resources. There were no fabrics. And my grandmother was incredibly talented at recycling, which is what we do now and what we care about so much nowadays. She could take my mom's old coat and make a coat for me and for my cousin.
Wow.
And she could take the collar off my aunt's jacket and put it on one of my little jackets. And we would have these things that would have another life in another, a year or two. My mom would wear something for a few years, and then we would have it, and then she'd recreate it for my cousins as well. So she really taught me that appreciation for fabric, for quality fabric, and for longevity of different fabrications. And good quality fabrics like silks and natural fabrications like silks and cottons that were very limited and very difficult to find in Russia in those days were incredibly valued, and for their longevity and for their quality and for their beauty.
Do you remember some of the first things that you created?
Absolutely, I still have them with me. I
Really?
created I had 6 dolls that were, one of them was a Barbie, black market Barbie, because you couldn't buy these things in the Soviet Union. My parents used to buy me, little dolls, and I would create outfits for them. And when we left Russia, that was my treasure. Basically we left the country, everyone could only bring one suitcase and $80 per person. So that's what we left with in 1976. And I had my little treasure chest of my 6 dolls and their entire wardrobe.
Oh, wow.
So I had little blouses and little tops I look at some of the stuff now and I can't imagine how I set those sleeves into the armholes. And they had these gowns and these dresses with trains and little bits and pieces of lace. And I basically used all the scrapes and little scraps of materials that my grandmother had left over from her clientele of dresses that she used to make, and I would save them and recreate them, make some beautiful little dresses for the dolls out of that by hand.
Wow, so this is really your destiny.
It must have been, because it's something that I've loved all my life.
That's
and it's
amazing.
Something that I was very passionate about. And what's amazing is that I had a chance to do it in this country.
Yeah.
And an opportunity and a privilege, of course. I have a feeling that had my family not picked up and left, and they really did it for me. My mom really did it with me in mind. I was an only child in Russia in those days. Nobody had more than one child because the living conditions were very tight. And I really truly believe that they did it for me. They picked up and left really so that I can have a future. And they're very proud. And my grandmother, who lived to be now almost 90, she was still alive when we started the company.
Oh, wonderful.
And watching the Style Channel till the very, very, last days of her life, and always crocheting or creating something. Hopefully I made her proud. She was very, very proud.
Well, there's no hopefully about it. I know you did. And this is, this is the legacy, isn't it? It's wonderful. Yeah. Well, gosh, I'm getting a little choked up listening to that. I'm sorry. So you came here at a time where fashion was exploding, and I know that, you went to school in New York. I mean, of all places to go, New York City, one of the fashion capitals of the world. In 76, 77?
I came to New York in 77 because we lived in Rome while we were getting our documents, and which was also a very exciting time for me as a teenager, as a youngster, to be exposed to all the beautiful museums. We lived in Vienna for about a month, and we lived in Rome for about 6 months. And so by the time I arrived in New York City, this was already 77, and we lived in Brooklyn Heights.
Okay.
And I remember it was St. George Hotel. It was beautiful, overlooking the Brooklyn Bridge, and we walked. 4 friends of mine, we walked across the Brooklyn Bridge.
Oh, wow.
We were like 13, 14 years old, and we walked across the bridge. It was freezing. It was end of January, beginning of February, and we put on our jackets, our coats, and it was such an exciting time for us to walk across the bridge. It was just an amazing feeling. And I went to high school in Queens, grew up in Queens, and my art teacher, who was very supportive of me, really helped me with my projects and really opened the door and said, you should pursue this as a career. I excelled in all the arts and really was able to catch up on and learn and excel in my English skills because I could speak no English when I came, obviously. And she really helped me put together a portfolio. I was sewing all the time in those days. I was going to nightclubs, so I needed a new dress every weekend for Studio 54. And the nightlife was amazing. And so what I did was I kind of part-time modeled during those years, end of high school.
I understand you modeled for Michael Kors.
Yes.
You modeled with Iman.
With Iman and with Pat Cleveland, with some of the legendary models. It was amazing. I mean, I was just like a youngster, I was 17 years old, and to me it was just such an amazing time in New York because this is when Halston was also still, doing the gowns, and the nightlife was very exciting, and Bianca Jagger had parties at Studio 54.
Fashion was really, that was probably the time for fashion. I mean, like you mentioned Halston, I thought about, Gloria Vanderbilt.
And Gloria Vanderbilt with the jeans from Marjani. I mean, that was also the whole birth time of the denim business. Sassoon jeans were the height of fashion. Those slinky, ooh la la. And it's funny, you ask someone today, nobody knows about that. So, a few of us remember, but not everyone. But it was a very exciting time, and I have to say it influenced me and my taste level for certain things quite a bit. And I was accepted into FIT.
Right. You went to Fashion Institute
and part-time model during studying, while I was studying at Fashion Institute, because I needed to support all the fabric purchases and all the muslin purchases, and it was great because I joined. They had a models club there, which what would happen is all the fashion houses, they would get their top models, and then they needed to fill in, so they would come in and we would do a runway, and they would choose people from, they still paid us quite well for those times, that we'd get between $150 and $250, which for me was a ton of money. It would pay for all my fabrics, for all the supplies that I needed. So it was a wonderful experience in New York, being in New York during that time. And really learning, really experiencing, really watching. I did a fashion show for Willie Smith, for Willie Wear, who was amazingly talented, such a talented young man. And that was the show that actually Iman and Pat Cleveland were in as well. It was on 7th Avenue. It was in this huge space that he had, this amazing showroom. And just a lovely, lovely guy.
Wow, well, we'll have to talk about that later, because there's a little 6 degrees of separation happening there. But that's a whole different show. But you know what I can really appreciate about you, Galina, is that you know firsthand, you know fashion. It's not like you're coming out and just putting your name on something that somebody else has already done, that you know fashion from start to finish. You've been at every aspect of it. You've sewn the product, you've worn the product, you know both sides of the business, and that's